some tips to get through the storm until you make it to wherever you're trying to go. Because what I've had to reset is the idea that bigger is better. Mia's Closet taught me that a couple years ago when we were growing really, really fast and people were just pouring into us and everybody had all these ideas, and we grew so fast and we were so receptive to different suggestions and stuff like that that we lost sight a little bit of the mission that we had for this organization. So the first thing that I want to suggest to you is have a focus. And when I say have a focus, actually create whatever it is that you're doing. Like, even if it's something as small as just like an event or your blog, or it could be anything. Like, create a vision and a mission for both. Because when you do that, you'll actually position yourself to have a point of reference that is so strong that if any point in time you are thinking about doing something, or you're feeling kind of like in a tizzy because you don't really know where you're supposed to land, you can reference your vision that you had, which can always be, revised if you feel like it's changing, but you have a solid point of reference. Go back to your mission. What are the different steps that I'm going to put in place to make sure I know that I'm honoring the vision that we put in place? That's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is get rid of the benchmarking in the traditional sense that maybe you've done it in the past. So say, for instance, like, you have your vision, you have your mission, you know what it is that you want to do. The only time you should go check out what other people have going on is just either for inspiration or because it's something that you just don't know how to do and you need the advice on doing it. But don't do it to compare yourself. Don't do it to see if you're good enough, if it's good enough, whatever. Don't get caught up in that, because when you have clarity and passion and a conviction about what you're doing, God's going to bless it, point blank. The next thing that I want to say is be very, very careful about the words that you speak into yourself. And I mean both the words that are coming out of your mouth that are audible and what you're saying to yourself inside. And the reason why I say that is I'm pretty good at playing the game. Even if I start off maybe with something negative, within 2 seconds I'm correcting it and cleaning it up and saying it right. But what I've noticed is that self-doubt is one of those things that it sneaks up on you, and you can be toiling over in your head different things, and it could be like, oh, I'm not as good as this, or I'm not as good at that, or gosh, like, I need to work on this, or I need to work on that. How come I'm not good at this, or how come I'm not good at that? Now, it's good to have like self-reflection, don't get me wrong, like, it can encourage you and push you to do better, but every time you have something that's negative, find a way to flip it positive. So instead of saying like, I'm not good at this, you say, I'm going to be so freaking great at X, Y, and Z. I'm going to be the best at X, Y, and Z. I'm going to touch this many lives, instead of, oh, we only had so many viewers. I can't wait until we hit 300,000 viewers. I can't wait until we hit, you know, 75 comments of people who have been moved and impacted. Because one of the things that came up in the Life That You Want weekend tour was the intent behind why you do what you do. So, like I said before, if you are doing it for the sake of doing it, just to get bigger and maybe more noticeable or whatever, that's such like a shallow goal to have, you know what I mean? And I remember Oprah made the comment, she was like, it doesn't matter if you are sitting there looking at whatever your project is or whatever thing that you have going on, and you're thinking to yourself like, gosh, I don't even have like 2,000 likes, or I don't even have 2,000 fans or whatever. She was like, none of that should matter. It should start with the content. And that's something that I really have had to get back to, because it frees you. It's just like, it's the coolest thing. It's like when you're not worried about how the numbers are doing or how it's growing or all that different stuff. And don't get me wrong, that stuff is important. Like, I'm not trying to discount it. But when it's not the center of your focus, what I've had to do is realign that to the content itself, to the impact that it can potentially make, to the lives that it can touch. It is such a freeing way to operate. And the reason why I, wanted to share this is because this is a conversation that I've had with other people who, they do doubt themselves sometimes in terms of what they're sharing, what they're posting. There are limitations that come with that. And I can say from personal experience, this is something that like I've kicked over the last month, and like I enjoy blogging again, and I enjoy creating content again, because I am seeking the value now out of the impact that we can make, as opposed to wanting to be, a big blogger who can do this full time and, be able to just create all this great content. Like, that's great, but like, the last thing I want to point out is consistency. So it's interesting because sometimes we overlook the journey and the steps that have been put in place for people to get where it is that they've gotten to. So say, for instance, you find a blogger you really like, you start following them, and next thing you know, you're like, oh man, I really like them. Like, I've been doing that. How come I'm not there? When am I going to get there? And it's like, well, they've been doing it for 5 years. And a lot of bloggers, you'll see, they'll actually talk about how long they've been doing something, and they do it consistently. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you have only been doing it for a fraction of the time, and you only post when you feel like it or when you get around to it, you can't expect to put in different input and get the same results. And that's something that I've really had to honor for myself. Like, I know that in the perfect world, I'll be able to do Mia's Closet, the coffee break, and consult. Like, that's what Chelsea's life, everything's going well, looks like professionally. And I had to take a step back and put a system into place to figure out how I was going to get there. Because if you don't know the direction that you're going in and you don't have the focus to hold you where you're supposed to be, it is very possible that you can put in all this work and you can make all these different efforts, and then you look up and you feel like you don't have anything to show for it. And that really was the conversation that I had with my dad, and I'm just so thankful that he is close enough and far enough to where he could perceive that. Because in my mind, like, oh, I have all this stuff going on, and I'm doing all these different things, like, I wonder what the thing to take off is going to be. But that focus piece is just so essential, focusing and being consistent. So I just want to encourage, anybody who can relate to this topic, who is trying to figure it out themselves, don't benchmark. Know your focus, create a vision and a mission for everything that you do so that it can hold you accountable. Get a system put in place so that you can always check to see, if what you're doing is something that is lining up with what it is that you want to do, and it can hold you accountable. And most importantly, be consistent. Be consistent, and don't keep up with the Joneses. It's not worth it. It will make you crazy, and it'll have you lose sight of what really matters, and that's just to connect and to create things that are going to be helpful to people in some way. So anyway, there's my spiel. I don't like talking about that because I'm super vulnerable about it, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But yeah, I hope it's good for anybody who needs to hear that. Something I'm always bad about. So if you like what you saw, share it, tweet it, reblog it. If you have your own experiences or your own stories that you want to share, feel free to go ahead and leave it for me in the comments section. I'd love to, read whatever experiences you've had, and give you my 2 cents on where we can laugh or cry or whatever about the pains of figuring it out. And like I said, thanks so much for watching. It means so much, and we'll see you next time. And she said, no, you left me up dancing.